Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to Conversations Live. This is the platform where ordinary and extraordinary people share their stories of inspiration, education, persistence, and resilience. And this afternoon, I have in studio an extra special guest. But before we get there, I am Desrine, your host, and this episode is also brought to you by Legacy Human Resource Management, delivering human resource services your way. Now, as is customary, we will reserve 15 minutes towards the end of the program to hear your views and also to answer your questions. And I'm almost sure that this afternoon that you are going to have questions because we are talking about disabled lives matter. You see, when I met my special guest, I had worked in human resource for many, many years, and I thought I knew what diversity and inclusion really meant for everyone. However, when I started talking to Erin, I learned so much, and I'm absolutely sure that this evening, inside her personal story, we are going to learn why disabled lives matter. Now, Erin's personal story is one that will amaze you, it will inspire you, it may even make you cry. It's going to take you through the whole gamut of emotions. But I also know that you will learn. And I have become passionate about this topic in diversity and inclusion. And she's an inclusion specialist. And so at this time, I'm going to welcome Erin. Erin, welcome to Conversations Live.
Thank you so much. It is such a wonderful, exciting time to be a part of Conversations Live.
All right. And now, as is customary on this program, we ask our guests to introduce themselves. So, could you go ahead and tell our audience who is Erin Brown?
Well, Erin Brown is a short, blonde haired black female wearing blue tinted glasses, braces, and a smile. My pronouns are she and her. I self identify as a limb difference individual, also known as an above the knee amputee. And so I love to use that as my introduction because when we're talking about diversity and inclusion and equity spaces, equitable spaces, we want to ensure that all participants are able to not only partake but be engaged in the conversation. So, yes, I hail from the beautiful islands of the Bahamas. I'm a Grand Bahamian native, so I'm from Grand Bahama. I am a mother, an athlete. I I am you, essentially. I am everything that represents a whole being with hopes and dreams and goals that I will, that together we will continue.
To talk about.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. All right. So, Erin, we like to start by going back to when you first discovered yourself.
Mhm.
Tell us about your childhood. What was it like growing up in Bahamas? Now, before we came on live, we were talking about whether the Bahamas is in the Caribbean
I
or
know.
not. And so your childhood will help me to see what we have in common as Jamaicans and Bahamians. So go ahead.
And so my childhood was a very, very intriguing one. And I say intriguing for this reason. My mother was heavily involved in civic involvement. So, ministry, community development. She was that. She was that person that we would go home with empty bags, go into our cabinet and empty our cabinets, and then go and visit somebody. And I'm sitting there as a child going, what's happening? Don't we need that food? And then my father, who was also into nation building, so he had a lot of political leadership aspirations and nation building on that end, was also an athlete. Both of them were athletes.
Ah.
So for me, I love the outdoor. I am the most island gal you will ever meet because I'm solar powered. I'm absolutely solar powered. I love the sun. I love the sand. I love the sea. I love to climb trees, whether I'm wearing a dress or not. So my parents really didn't like that. And I recognize that even at a young age, I was the defender of persons who needed justice or who needed help or who needed an extra push for that person who's trying to get at them. So my childhood was full of a lot of, I would say, core developments that I now live through right now.
Yes, and I can identify. So those empty bags going in and coming out with something to give to others, it's a Caribbean thing. It's a neighborly thing. That is how we grew up as well. If we had and somebody in the neighborhood didn't have, then we had to share, no matter how small it was.
Yes.
And I think that that is what embedded in us that kind of altruistic kind of thing, wanting to help each other, to make life easier for others, to have everybody included, right?
Yes.
That's where it starts. Okay, good. So in terms of education, so your parents were into athletics and then you loved it too. But tell us about your schooling. How was that for you? What did you study?
Hmm. So schooling for me, I did most of my schooling here in the Bahamas. I did from grade school, so preschool to senior high. I graduated here in the Bahamas, and my the most transitional thing for me during my high school moments was the fact that I had to move from Grand Bahama to the capital in New Providence. And this was due to the fact that my mom, she was diagnosed with lupus and was dealing with a lot of those impacts and symptoms that come with come with that diagnosis. And so we had to move here. And so I had to leave all of my friends, all of the things that I knew, and I had to start a new adventure at the age of 15. So I finished school in Nassau. Once again, I was still very heavily involved in civic involvement, whether it was Key Club, I still played
Mhm.
sports. And then I worked. I made a promise. I made a promise to my dad and my mom because our families are not financially overflowing,
Mhm.
right? And so we worked very hard. I went to a private school and my parents worked very hard. So I said to them, when I go to college, I will pay for it. So I'm going to work first and then go off. And so I graduated in 98. By 2001, I went off to college and I actually went on a scholarship. So I got to use some of that money I saved up, which was really good. And I studied in business management, a
Mhm.
bachelor's degree in business management in Institute, West Virginia, the most islandy place because it's a small settlement. So I loved it. I loved that everybody knew everybody. It was like a huge family that you gained. And from there, I came back home. I was diagnosed during that time with bone cancer, and I came home. And so my
Okay,
journey,
we're not going there yet. Just give us
I
a little time
know,
to give.
I know. So my dreams and my aspirations during those times, because growing up, people always ask you, what do you want to be? And to be honest, I always said it has to do with talking with persons.
Mhm.
So maybe communications, radio, television,
Mhm.
getting to know persons, new environments. I enjoy that. I adapt very well. I love learning new stuff. And so that and cooking. I was like, I like to eat. I want to do something with food. But my father, he literally spoke into my life. He was like, no, you're going to be the first prime minister, the first female prime minister because he was in politics. You're going to be the first prime minister female of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, or you're going to be a political stronghold. Like he put that into me. And I remember looking up at him with my big doe eyes saying, Daddy, really? Really? No, I'm not going to do anything in terms of that. But boy, was I wrong.
But what was your dream though? Your parents were athletes, and you were into athletics. So what was your dream? I know you went to do business and so on, but when you were thinking about it when you were 15, what did you want to be? I wanted to be a teacher like my teacher because I loved my teacher.
Yeah. I honestly wanted to be a criminal lawyer,
Okay.
but I recognize that that may not have been the best thing for me. And here's why. As I learned more, as I got older, and I recognized the oath and you having to represent persons whether they're guilty or not,
Mhm.
knowing that they're guilty, I don't know if I would have been able to sleep or even thrive. And so I said, you know what, Dad, maybe a lawyer is not for me. And that's why I said I smile today because my long-term goal is to become a disability lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
I'm actually still in that vein of becoming an attorney at law, but
Wow.
now specifically dealing with disability.
Wow, I'm going to push you to that, Erin. I'm going to push you to do that. And I think that, I don't know if you have had a female prime minister, but I also think that you would be a fantastic prime minister. So,
Thank
those two
you.
things, you got those two things to fulfill. Okay, so let's talk about influences. I know your parents were major influences in your life, but was there anyone else that you admired that really had an impact on you?
Yes, beyond my parents, because I'm telling you, they were real
Right.
life superheroes. Like
Yes.
the things that I saw my parents do to this day, I still hold that dear to me and know that everything is possible. But other persons that would have influenced me, honestly, would have been a lot of two elements, a lot of female empowerment and leadership type of role models that I came in contact with, whether it was in Kiwanians or Rotary, because I was so civically involved with the community and rendering services. A lot of my spaces and a lot of the spaces that I engaged with were those type of spaces. So I saw persons engaging with all types of individuals, no matter race, gender, sexual orientation. It didn't matter where you lived, what you do, what you were wearing. And I feel like that within itself was one of the core elements that I can recognize now, kind of birthed a lot of things in me that I did not know was being planted.
Yes.
I also had my absolute, I wanted to go to the Olympics because I just had to be FloJo. I'm just going to be honest. I wanted to be FloJo. I used to put the scotch tape on my fingers because, she had those long nails. I used to wrap the towel around my head with the headband for that long hair. I'm sitting in our living room watching our race, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm going to be. I'm going to the Olympics. And so those would have been, and once again, that was a female. So those would have been some of the core elements for me that influenced me a lot, whether it was consciously and
Mhm.
subconsciously.
Wonderful. So then you became an athlete. So tell us about that.
Well, can I be honest? I was birthed into this. And I say that so authentically. At the age of 9, I was winning medals. I was winning trophies. I was winning medals, and I just caught the bug. Like I told you, Flo Joe, I was like, I'm coming to see you. I'm coming to the Olympics, and because my mom and my dad was both in were both
Athletics.
athletes, they
Mhm.
were able to literally from a young age teach me how to balance, how to be a whole person with all of these layers. Yes, we're community involved. Yes, you want to be an athlete, but what are your personal goals? What do you like to do? And for me, that was very important because I
Mhm.
loved French from very early. I learned French and I went on foreign exchange trips in order to engage that and foster that. And then I traveled to Nassau a lot in order to compete for my school. And so the athlete in me, or the whole Erin in me, the values that I had at a very young age still hold true for me. And today, I'm not heading to the Olympics, but I am heading to the Paralympics. And so I became the first para triathlete for the Bahamas.
Wow.
So once again, I mean, it's tying into me. I'm sitting here and I'm in awe that the fact that FloJo was one of my rep, and she was the first to do a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am now preparing to do the same, but now I have my nation that
Yeah.
we're doing this together. It's never solely about Erin. And I know I look like a superhero and I'm big and I'm loud and I'm out there and I'm unique. But I absolutely need the support. I appreciate the love and I welcome us doing this together.
Yes. Yes. So now we're going to get into that story now. How
Mhm.
did you become a Paralympian? How did you? So you started talking about it. I want to get it now. So tell us, you had that major life experience. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So we all know it's October, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Yet we all know when we have the word cancer, we go,
Mhm.
what am I supposed to do? And for me, I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma at the age of 23. I had
Mhm.
already had my firstborn boy. And when I heard the word cancer, I was like, okay. And for me, that was, I think my reaction was that because by that time, at the age of 17, my mom had transitioned from lupus. And
Mhm.
so my superhero, I literally saw her with her cape on, the wind is blowing, hair is blowing to last breath. And that, as cringeful as that sound, it was those moments that helped me as a mother during my cancer journey to hold on to.
Mhm.
And so when I was diagnosed with stage 4 bone cancer, also known as osteosarcoma, I went straight into aggressive treatments. I didn't see my son for about a year because
Mhm.
I had to leave the Bahamas. I was home on a break and I had to leave the Bahamas to get treatment in Florida. And therefore, I didn't take my son. When he finally came, that's when it hit me. I was like, okay, Erin, what are you going to do? We need a plan. Because it
Mhm.
was one thing that I learned with my mom's treatments was there was a plan. So let's engage a plan. And so did the treatments. I mean, everything that the doctor said was not going to happen. I'm that poster child. Everything happened that was not supposed to happen. I was allergic to things I should not be allergic to. And so I then had to decide to let go my leg. I am
Mhm.
an above the knee amputee. I started off my life as a non disabled person for 23 years.
Yes.
And by the time I was 25, 24, I was now receiving an amputation of my left leg above the knee. And this was the new Erin.
Yeah.
So, what did that mean? That
Mhm.
meant many things because I was still a mother.
Mhm.
I still had my goals.
Yes.
I still was qualified by society's standards. But what I did had to recognize is the removal of my leg removed a lot of my
Yes.
access to things that we don't even consider as basic human rights.
Yep.
It just disappeared, and that reality was a hard one, more than deciding to let go of the leg. To be honest, letting go of the leg was fine for me because, in
Yes.
my opinion, it was leg over life. I
Life.
get to
Right.
stay, I get to stay, I get to do. And
Mhm.
by that time, I had already come to terms with if I was to transition due to on my cancer journey, I'm okay with that as well because
Mhm.
my value wasn't tied into me being on earth or me leaving and then leaving a legacy or memories and all of that. For some reason, I was okay with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here you are. Your athletic dream being FloJo was gone. Your leg was gone. Access now became an issue.
Yeah.
How did you take on that fight? Because I know you did.
You know I did.
I know you did.
And so I came home. I remember coming home and I'm crying when I'm coming home because I've been away now for a few years doing treatments. I'm receiving the amputation, doing the rehab, and I'm seeing the crystal blue waters, and I'm like, I'm home. I get to come home. And then I come off the plane, and the reality that I am now a person with a disability
Yeah.
and what that means within the Caribbean, what that
Mm-hmm.
means within the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
My first experience was shocking. I'm using crutches to move around. And so I'm waiting now for them to bring the wheelchair. And by the time the wheelchair comes, which felt like hours later,
Mm-hmm.
they then sent a person who was clearly not in a space to provide me with any assistance. And so my life was literally endangered. I was like, okay, let's do this. I'm going to take my time, use the crutches, and come down the stairs, and then I will sit in the chair. And then, can you push the chair safely?
Mm.
And he was like, yeah, man, I got this. I got this. You know? So I came down, I sat down. And for me, that was my first red flag that, okay, Erin, this journey may not be
Mm-hmm.
what you think it may be. Because during those years, while I was doing my rehab, abroad, there's a lot of accessible features and policies and acts and laws put into place. And so they're already coming in from an inclusive, accessible type of engagement. So my
Right.
expectations was really high. It was really high. So coming home, it was like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what can be done?
Yes.
So I went right into action. I said, all right, so these are the gaps. I started to show up in spaces asking questions that, hi, I'm a new amputee. Where do I need to go? Are there any, because I paid international insurance, are there any programs, what's happening? Because there was not a place that I
Mm-hmm.
can go and get all of this information at once. And they looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. And I was like, I know I'm not the first nor the last person to show up in this space and ask these questions. So I just went right at it. My community service, all of the background and the experiences that I've had. I
Mm-hmm.
started an organization that provided persons with crutches, wheelchairs, shrinkers, anything that they possibly need when they immediately received an amputation and to get into rehabilitation. And I kept asking the questions. At this time, I'm also applying for jobs, and they're looking at me like, "Oh, where are you going with these crutches?"
Wow.
And so that didn't happen. And I went, "Okay, God, there has to be another way because I know from my experiences, there's always a way.
There's always a way.
There's always a way."
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat down and I said, what expertise do I have? What can I offer persons? And I became an entertainment, beauty, entertainment, and fashion consultant where I sourced talent. I worked on production sets. I did collateral. I did editorial publications. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
the campaigns and stuff that happened in the Bahamas, I was behind the scenes. I worked with really great production companies and they didn't care that I missed a leg. And I was like, okay, jackpot. I think I got something here. But what it did reveal for me also was an opportunity to start a business.
Okay.
And the
Mm-hmm.
business was
Okay.
disability inclusion consultancy. And I
Mm-hmm.
found that there were civil society needed these services. They needed to know how and what to do. No, it was not trending at the time. Everybody wondered, what in the world are you speaking about? How could you possibly be talking about some disabled? Like, we don't even say that word out loud.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And so I stayed the course because not only did this impacted me, it impacted my community, which the census has stated that it's over 10,000 persons within the Bahamas as of 2010. We're
Wow.
now in 2021. it is time. It is
It is
time.
time. It
Yeah,
is
it is
time.
time for us to have these conversations where disability inclusion is a part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation
Mm-hmm.
because we're not a secret society.
Mm-mm.
We're not hiding anywhere. We are living in a environment that is full of barriers,
Mm-hmm.
preset barriers, because our current frameworks, our policies, our procedures, they do not speak to an inclusive framework. They don't speak to accessibility for all of the market, all of your work skill force, all of the
Mm-hmm.
marketing, the
Mm-hmm.
branding, all of the
Mm-hmm.
money left on the table, if I may say it out loud.
Yes. Yes. And as you're speaking, you said, say the word.
Yeah.
There are disabled people in the world.
Yes.
And we need to acknowledge that, because unless we do, we will not achieve any form
No,
of inclusion.
no,
We
or
can't.
sustainability.
Yeah. In other words, I remember first we spoke, some people don't want to say it because they don't want to offend. But then if they don't say it, they won't be able to understand it, to learn more about it and address it. And so I thank you so much. So I know that you are not just an ambassador in the Bahamas, that your campaign, your work has taken you maybe all over the world, because especially now in the virtual space, right? That's how I met you, in the virtual space. And I want you to talk about some of the initiatives, some of the things that we need to learn about disability inclusion.
Well, first and foremost, you said it right. Say the word. Disability is not a bad word. It
Yeah.
is, in fact, part of our identity. And because we have not treated it as race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, socio-economic factors, we continue to disenfranchise,
Mhm.
marginalize, and exclude a population that is over 1 billion strong, 15% of the entire world's population, and also the third largest economic powerhouse.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so we have heard disability and seen it as a negative, as a disadvantage, as, oh, there's no money in that, or, oh, they don't have any money, or they don't have any goals, or those persons don't know what they want in life. And that is a blatant lie that you're spreading,
Mm-hmm.
but that's also a blatant lie that our community has been believing all of these years because we have continued to experience barriers. We've
Mm-hmm.
continued to show up for jobs and we're looked at as, I think you should be home. You sure you're at the right place? We continue to not be included when disability intersects the mere fabric of all of our lives, all
Yes.
of sustainability, all of innovation, all of creativity. So I am here tonight, and I love you for this, Desiree. We are here to say, reclaim that word,
That's right.
reclaim that word,
Say
reclaim that
the word.
power.
Yes.
Yes. And so, what the fundamental thing is data collection. How can nations and spaces and companies and corporations and funding be allocated and budgeted or created if you do not truly know who your populace are or what their
That's right.
needs are?
That's right.
And so now we need to move forward towards disaggregated data. We
Mm.
have the gender, we have the race, we have all these other elements. Let's add another D in there,
Absolutely.
disability.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned into Conversations Live, and I have a very special guest this afternoon, Erin Brown, and she's a disability inclusion consultant. And we're talking about this very important topic, and I like it. Maybe we should have called it Say the Word, but our topic is Disabled Lives Matter. And Erin, you said something. If we don't face it, we will not address it. If we do not include it, we are naturally excluding people.
Yes.
We are excluding people, and it is out of fear. So how do we go about mitigating that fear, taking it away, helping people to understand it's not a bad word? What are some of the things that you encourage organizations and people to do? Because there's a fear there that you may be hurting someone if you say the word,
Mhm.
right? So help us to understand how to communicate.
So one of my main, what I love to share with persons is refocus. First, recognize that disability, varying disabilities that a person is living with, a person
Mhm.
first, is living with that disability, is experiencing inaccessibility. Their
Mm.
experience being excluded, their experience reduced opportunities.
Mm.
Why? Because we have not intentionally dissect, identify the gaps that speak to access, that
Yes.
speak to inclusion, that speaks to opportunities.
Yeah.
And so when you're engaging with a person with a disability, ask the question, how can I help you?
Yes.
How can
Yeah.
I be of assistance? And
Mhm.
matter of fact, you would find that even in our community, the word disabled or disability or a person with a disability, we are still finding our own energy and reclaiming what that means for each
Mhm.
and every one of us. And
Mhm.
so if you happen to say a person with a disability and that person says no, they prefer to be called differently abled or referred to as
Mhm.
differently able, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's
Mhm.
okay. We have in the Caribbean differently abled. That's a term that some spaces actually use to identify persons with disabilities. But from an international standpoint, we encourage person with a disability or disabled person or disabled people because it's identity first centric, and therefore it inspires or it leans to you increasing the
Mhm.
awareness of identifying that
Mhm.
person as such. And
Yes.
so ask the question. There's no right or wrong way.
Mhm.
I know we make up all these fluff terms, and it's purely because we want to be either politically
To be
correct or we
correct.
want to be comfortable to have the conversation. Growth is not comfortable. And
Yes.
we found out in a disaster and an emergency, from Hurricane Dorian to earthquakes to now the pandemic, that
Mhm.
access is fundamental. It's a human right.
It is.
And so, if we don't intentionally ensure that our policies, our procedures, our protocols, our products, our services, our branding, our marketing, our
Mhm.
hiring, you get what I'm going?
Mhm.
Every fabric
Mhm. Mhm.
that
Mhm.
intersects life, intersects disability. We have to ensure that, because in a blink of an eye, in a blink of an eye, in a breath, we can all acquire
A
a
disability.
disability. We can all experience an accident, incident, medical diagnosis, whatever it may be. And now you have to live through these
Mhm.
spaces that you did not ensure was accessible, was inclusive,
Yeah.
or now provide you with opportunities to thrive.
Yes, and I like what you say, and I want the audience to get that have the conversation. How may I help you?
Yes.
How can I be of assistance to you, so that you can know how that person wants to be treated? Because these are people. That's the thing, they are people just like us, just with a disability. They are talent. Organization need them. I heard you talking about you're going into the fashion world and you're creating all of these things, and nobody cared. What they were
No.
looking at was
Mm-hmm.
a talent, and that is where inclusion really happens. When
Yes.
someone looks at you, and instead of thinking about something that they may have to do that they didn't want to do, they understand that you need access. You need access to be a part of the team. So,
Yes.
Erin, tell us about your dream now, because I want to talk about that. Your dream of going to the Olympics, what you have, how you've been preparing, and anything else you want to tell us about that journey. How I know you wanted to be Joe, that didn't happen, and now you're going to be a Paralympian, and you're going to. I know you are going to do it. Tell us about
Mhm.
how is that developing right now?
And so I just want to add to what you said when we're talking about all of ensuring that access is provided. And
Yes.
that's important. And here's why. If you are working, you've put in so many years, you're a business owner, you're in a company, and you acquire a disability, and now you no longer are employed. That's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Quickly, just like that. But it does not have to be so.
Yes.
If we had put in the proper framework, seamless transition, seamless integration, to speak about accommodations, to speak
Mm-hmm.
about what assistive support and resources that is needed within those spaces to ensure that you're able to execute your duties. We
Absolutely.
also want to talk about the fact that all disabilities are not visible. All disabilities are not visible, not with your naked eye.
Correct.
It's not. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. And so we need to treat persons like how we would want to be treated,
Treated.
whether you're aware if they have a
Mm-hmm.
disability or not, whether you have a feeling or an inclination. You don't come right out and say, "Do you have a disability?
Yeah.
What is your disability? What were you medically do? Unless you're a doctor, a primary physician who
Mm-hmm.
about to render me some service, we can have that type of conversation. But you want to respond and interact with persons as you would like to be engaged and interacted with.
Totally
Now,
agree.
no, the FloJo dream has zoomed away, but the Erin Bionic Brown dream is real. And I say that with much excitement
Yes.
because I am not the first Paralympian for the Bahamas. I am not the first.
Right.
I am the first para triathlete in the para triathlon, but I am not the first Paralympian. And so what my goal is not only for Paralympic development to be on a scale with all of our athletic development, Olympic and Paralympic development, which also has Special Olympics
Mm-hmm.
development, because all three of these components speak to one thing: sports,
Yeah.
athleticism, development, personal development. Nations are built from these things.
Absolutely.
And these spaces allow us to engage all athletes, adaptive athletes, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what varying disabilities, diverse disabilities that they live with, whether you're diagnosed or undiagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
That's another topic. Just the whole platform of being assessed is another element.
Yes.
Yes, what I want to encourage, no matter what your dream is, know that you have the right for access, no matter what you look like, no matter how you dress, where you live, where you come from, what language you speak. Access is
Mm-hmm.
your right.
It's a right.
And so when you show up being authentic. You don't have to hide these layers anymore. I encourage you not to hide these layers because we're so accustomed to hiding these layers. We're
Mm-hmm.
allowing them to create more infrastructure that is not accessible,
Mm-hmm.
more policies that don't speak to our specific needs and the way that we need to thrive. We need you to come out and show up. So Paralympics is on the table for the Bahamas now. We now have a space that we are developing within the Bahamas Paralympic Committee where we are going to not only train coaches, non-disabled and disabled coaches,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to train athletes
Mm-hmm.
who are in any varying disability, no matter what it is,
Yes.
how it
Right.
presents,
Mhm.
there is a space for
Access.
you. Access.
Access. Yes.
Yes. Yep.
So tell us about your what are the three things that you're going to be doing?
So, three things. First of all, I'm a mom. I'm
No,
a
no, no,
mom.
no, no. I'm talking about at the Olympics. What three activities you're going to be engaged
Got
in?
you. So, in the triathlon, the discipline of the triathlon, it has three elements. It has
Yes.
swimming, running, and cycling.
Ah.
I, I don't know how I get in this. And let me tell you why. You ever see Flojo run long? Flojo was a sprinter.
That's right. That's
Mama was a sprinter. Okay. And then I got a taste of the triathlon where I swam and then I cycled and then I ran for three miles because it's a
mm-hmm.
5K. So that's about
Mm-hmm.
3.1 miles, right? And I liked it. And I went, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And in college, I played volleyball. I ran track and
Mm-hmm.
field, but I also played volleyball. So my first initial sport I wanted to do was sitting volleyball because I wanted to continue to play volleyball. But
Mm-hmm.
with Paralympic development, everything is possible. Everything is available. Everything is accessible. And so for me, because I have three disciplines, the running, the cycling, and the swimming, I can actually also participate as a para swimmer. I can also sprint again. I can go into development of sprinting, and I can also be a paracyclist. But I found rowing very interesting. In my training, I do a lot of kayaking and rowing, and oh my goodness, I think that that may be another element that I will dabble into and develop that. But we have an opportunity to have a power rowing team from the Bahamas represent in 2024 Paris.
Wow.
Access is here. Are
Access.
you ready for it? Are
I am
you ready?
ready.
So I
Are
know
you?
we are here because Conversations Live is
That's right.
giving access to this conversation in such a
That's
way
right.
that the
That's right.
opportunities are going to just come at you really fast. So prepare yourself
It's
after this conversation.
yeah, it's so inspiring because you have dreams, you have goals, and you're an athlete.
Mhm.
And there are others that you speak for who have these dreams and these goals, but think they could not do it or they cannot do it. But in your story, they're realizing that I can. And that is why we do Conversations Live, Erin. That's why we talk to people like you,
Yeah.
so that other persons who are listening, even parents who have children and think that they're limited because there's no access, will start the work. We need to do the work. I am willing to join you. As I tell you, I am willing to join this because, as I said, for so many years, we talked about reasonable accommodation, allowing people to feel guilty that they're putting us out of our way when it was our duty to provide access. And I hope that as many persons as possible will tune into this particular edition of Conversations Live to really listen to you.
Mhm.
It's an individual thing in terms of how we talk to people and how we listen and how we respond, but it is a global thing in terms of how we provide access.
Yes, yes. And not only a global thing, we're global citizens living
Correct.
in the Caribbean, living in the Bahamas, no matter where you live on this in this world, we are a part of a system. We are a
Mhm.
part of a community. And for me, even living in the Bahamas, my community abroad, around the world, held me,
Mhm.
provided me with ways when I was just done. I was like, listen, this island gal tired. I'm fighting. I am breaking down doors to give myself access in order to not allow someone else to go through this because this is
Right.
hard.
Mhm.
This is
It's
hard. And a
hard.
lot of persons look at it and they see me and they go, oh, there she is again. Why is she doing that? I doing that for you
Yes.
because I don't want you to experience this. God has purposely filled me with so much that I don't even think I've come to full grips to what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yet,
Mm-hmm.
after removing my leg, after losing my mom, losing my daughter, losing so much, I found it wasn't really a loss. It
Yeah.
pushed me, it propelled me, it gave me the motivation, it gave me the tools. It unearthed something in me that I didn't
Mhm.
even know exists to show up. So I'm ready to show up for you, even if you ain't ready to show up for you.
That's right.
If you saying this girl talking too much, she's showing up too much, was she round here with a one leg again? Oh, listen, you're gonna have to get tired. And after
Speak.
you get tired, you're gonna join. And you're going to be able to advocate your specific needs. You're going
Yeah.
to be able to speak to and be involved and at the table to talk
Mm-hmm.
about inclusion, to
Mm-hmm.
talk about the opportunities, to show up authentically. That is why my goal at the end of the day is to light that fire for you, to light that fire for each and every one of you. I don't care where you are in the world.
That's
I
right.
am so sorry that I don't know any other languages that I could say it in another way for you, but there's an app for that. Go ahead and find that app, but know that you are of value. Your value is not tied to an amputation, to your sight, to your hearing,
There
to
you
your
go.
intellectual limitations. It does not, your value does not tie to that. What it does tie to, and we spoke about this, Desirine, your superpower.
Your superpower.
Your
That's right.
superpower.
That's right. That's what diversity does. You
Mhm.
see, if we're all the same, Erin, how boring life would be. And so when we embrace the differences and we start put together the tools and we see everybody coming together, it is a superpower because everybody now have access. Everybody feels that they're treated humanely. That's where we achieve inclusion. Thank you for teaching me that.
Yes. And Desiree, as much as we here doing the dance,
Yes.
it is not an easy or
No.
a it doesn't feel great. It's uncomfortable because you're gonna have to say the word disability.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be all right after you say it. You're gonna have to acknowledge that you yourself have not been as accessible or inclusive in your way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I have to address those unconscious biases, those different belief systems that you have been brought into indoctrined with when it comes to persons with disability, diversity, when it comes to who value what opportunities. And so this conversation is one not to have lightly, but to
Mm-hmm.
have one creatively.
It is a lifelong crusade as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Because, and I think we're only just beginning. As I said, I have worked in HR for over 27 years. And when I met you 2 months ago and you started speaking, I had to stop and think, I know nothing about inclusion really.
Yeah.
I don't. What I know is what is in the textbook.
Yes.
But you were sharing the practical things. I was an abled person and I wasn't thinking about all of these things and until I became a disabled person and realized that, oh my goodness, things I took for granted I no longer have access.
Yeah.
And I have a right. I like that. It's my human right to have access to do the things that my heart desires to do as long as it is possible. It
Mhm.
is my human right. And
Mhm.
every nation on the face of the earth
Mhm.
should provide that access, not reasonable accommodation,
No.
but access so that people can be the best that they can be. And I really was inspired when you talk about the people will be training both able-bodied person and disabled person, because we need to work together to make things happen. We must work together. If we are afraid and we say, okay, um, we get segregated, okay, only this kind of person can do this for that, then we will not achieve inclusion. Inclusion is when we all are able to work together towards the common goal. It's fascinating, Erin, as I listen to you. And I thank you so much for coming here and to share your story. And we're going to talk about those three major things in your life. And now I give you that opportunity to talk about that.
So the three major things in my life. Oh, I started, and you know what? I glad you waited until this time to say it, because I get so emotional when I talk about being a mother.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation that we're having is definitely a practical one. We want to give you more fundamental, relatable information and tools and awareness that you can leave here with. But the deeper layer of things is when you were born with a disability and when you acquire a disability, there's a lot of retraining or reorienting who you are and
Mm-hmm.
what is your purpose and how do you engage, because everybody has a view on what you should and should not do. Remember, in the beginning I told you what I wanted to do and my parents told me what they thought I was going to do. It takes it takes a different type of movement to recognize that it's okay to not live up to anybody else's expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I live. I literally now live in such an authentic place where, for me, being a mother is paramount, but also being a nation builder. Being
Yes.
a nation builder has leaned on me in a certain way that I appreciate it even more now than I thought that I could have. And I
Mm-hmm.
recognize that the gift that I have to bear a lot of weight, to withstand a lot of criticism,
Mm-hmm.
rejection, all of these things. I have the worth all. And so I have to ensure that I show up.
Yes.
Even if I say to myself, Erin, this is enough, and I take a rest, I still have to be intentional to show up, to ensure that the voices are amplified. And thirdly, I I want to be that beacon. I want to be that beacon, not only for myself, but for my children and for just what is possible. I they usually tell me, you don't no excuse, woman. Like, you would just show up, and every excuse I give you, you telling me, okay, no, okay, but what about this? Okay, did you think about that? And I don't like that about you. Yet that's my purpose. I've come to terms with that, and it's not a comfortable thing. So three layers, or three, the onion that kind of gonna make you cry, but at the same time gonna make your food taste good. Is I
I love that.
Yes. So being a
Erin, you are a
mother,
beacon though. You
yeah,
you are a light.
yeah,
You are a force.
yeah,
And I agree with you that being uncomfortable for you is the best thing because it propels you into purpose.
yeah,
I can see that. Somebody wrote that motivation is a powerful thing because having gone through so much, that spunk that you still have, and that's what drew me to you actually,
yeah.
right? That spunk when I started listening to your story, and I thought to myself, you spoke about your mom with lupus, and I have lupus,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's hard, and I feel
It
sorry
is.
for myself, and then I start listening to you, and I'm like, Des, come on, keep going. And I'm a positive person, I really am. But what it says to me is that the burden that we carry, we
Mhm.
are the ones who are supposed to be carrying it.
Ooh, now you're gonna mash too much corn saying that. The burdens that you carry, are you supposed to carry
Yep,
it? But
yep,
you're also supposed to learn from it. And
yes.
and my girlfriend who loves Beyonce likes to tell me, surfboard girl, surfboard. Because sometimes you have to embrace that feeling. You can't run from it. You can't run from the fact that I'm depressed today. I have anxiety today. I feel overwhelmed
Mhm.
today. You have to embrace that. You have to
Mhm.
embrace it. You have to process it. And you have to make the decision that, okay, after I do this, I'm going to take the steps to come out of it. I'm not going to sit and just invite the people to the party. I don't
Mhm.
want no more persons in this party. I got to get out of this party, you know? And
Yeah.
so those are real emotions. Those are real emotions that you have to address. Yet
Mhm.
you have to make an intentional vow to yourself foremost
Mhm.
that you are going to do what is necessary to consistently come out of it.
Absolutely. Show up every single time authentically as
Yeah.
yourself with all your flaws.
Yep.
Right.
I
This is
use
your
a
calling.
wheelchair. Sometimes people see me in a wheelchair. They see me with
Mhm.
crutches. They see me using my prosthetic. And honey, I gonna be fly with all of them things. Why? They are my assistive devices. They're a part of me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. So, what are the things that you would want to leave in the minds of our listeners about disabled lives matter, this whole issue of inclusion for that community?
I would like to leave with everyone is you, your values, the way you view persons,
Mhm.
the way you have decided that you're going to show up not only impacts yourself, but it
Mhm.
overflows into others. And so diversity includes disability. I know that we've heard about race a whole lot and gender a whole lot, but it absolutely includes disability.
It does.
So we want to ensure that when we're talking about diversity, we ensure disability is a part of that conversation. Equity,
Yes.
equitable spaces is
Yes.
beyond equality. It is beyond equality. Equality
Mhm.
is giving everybody the
The same
same
thing.
thing and it's
Right.
supposed to work magically. Ding, ding, ding. Does not happen that way.
No, it doesn't.
Equity speaks to providing the specific needs in
Yes.
order for it to work effectively.
Yes. Yes.
Inclusion,
Inclusion.
sustainability, innovation, creativity, money making, all includes, ensures, enables inclusion. You
Beautiful.
cannot leave those three out.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And Erin, if people want to contact you, get in touch with you, link with you, access your services, how can they reach you?
Well, they can go to www.erinbrownconnects.com. Yay! I'm so excited about that. So we have
Yes.
a website now that we're developing. So please don't be too harsh. It's new. But I'm also on social media. So you can find me on Facebook at Erin Brown Connects, Instagram, Erin Brown Connects, LinkedIn, Erin Brown Connects. If you happen to forget any of that, go to Google, type in Erin Brown, comma, the Bahamas. Boom! You're going to find me. The numbers are real. We have decided to move towards creating a disability hub, not only
Mhm.
for the Bahamas, but for the Caribbean and globally. So, by all means, reach out. We'll come to you virtually, we'll come to you in person, but we definitely will show up because together we continue. Disabled lives matter.
Oh, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Conversations Live with the indomitable, the force, Erin Brown. Thank you so much, Erin, for being here and for sharing your story and for educating us and opening our eyes that the word disabled
Mhm.
is not a bad word, it's a real word. And
Mhm. Yeah.
until we embrace it, inclusion will not really happen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for Conversations Live. And until next time, remember, take care of yourself. And if you like this video, give us a comment, a thumbs up,
Yes.
and remember to subscribe. Until next time, bye now from Conversations Live.